Good afternoon, everybody, and it's Annette Densham here with Obsessed With Live, and I am joined today by Fray, who's a midwife and she's a best-selling author for Penguin Random since 2005, so I think she knows what she's talking about. She's also the managing director of motherwise.com, which provides resources and services to people having babies, and is the founding director of IMHCO.com, which stands for International Integrative Maternity Healthcare Organisation. Kathy, thank you for joining us today. And can I take by your accent that you're coming all the way from New Zealand?
Yes, I am. And thank you so much, Annette, for inviting me through. It's just wonderful.
Oh, it's an absolute pleasure. When I saw your interview booking come in, it was like, what a really interesting topic to be talking about because, so many, like we've been having babies for a long time, obviously, because there's over 7 billion of us on the planet. But it almost seems like we take for granted that it's a really natural process when there really is a lot that can go wrong, not just in the birth, but pre-birth. Am I right in saying that?
Yeah, you're absolutely correct in saying that. And then, but on the other sort of flip side of that is there's not so much knowledge about how to keep things normal. And I think that women today we've lost that knowledge. Our mums aren't telling us about it, our grandmothers aren't telling us about it, and so we've kind of become a bit disempowered because we don't really know that much as first time pregnant women, unless you put a medical background. I depends on your medical background, so
I kind of skip those classes in terms of getting a medical background, and I guess it's also overwhelming because we go to Dr. Google and we type in what can we expect when expecting, or what's going to happen when I'm in labor, or what's going to happen when bub comes home, and there's everybody's got an opinion, don't they?
And it's really hard. I call it data asphyxiation. There's just so much out there, and every single thing that you decide that you're going to do or not do, there'll be somebody telling you online it's the best decision, and there'll be somebody telling you online it's the worst decision. And one of the things that I think probably is why my books have been popular is because I'm really, really middle path. So that's kind of my mission, is saying, look, you can do it that way or that way. I don't care which way you do it, but these are your options, and these are the risks, and so these are the benefits, sort of thing. And occasionally, I will have quite a strong opinion on something, but I'll always give the heads up and just say, on this topic, I have a strong opinion. You don't necessarily have to agree with me, but I do, so I'll sort of fess up on that. But I think there's a lot of very, very strong opinions on things that people are receiving kind of a bit of a one-sided explanation on it, which is not helpful.
I think that's an understatement. So can you tell me a little, I know that you're considered a global thought leader on maternity integrative healthcare. Can you explain to me what that actually means?
Yeah, totally. So, basically, if you think of the term of integrative medicine, meaning, that, say, if you go to an integrative medicine clinic, you might have a regular medical doctor there, and then you might have a homeopath, and you might have an acupuncturist, and you might have an osteopath, and a chiropractor, etc. So, that's integrative medicine, is saying that, hey, mainstream modern medicine doesn't know it all, which it sure as heck doesn't. In fact, the more it studies, the more it realizes it doesn't have a clue. And yeah, that's just, I've worked as a research midwife. I know how this stuff goes, and it's true. The more we study the human body, the more we go, wow, really, it does that? How does that happen? Kind of thing. And so maternity integrative medicine is basically the maternity aspect of it. So because when women are pregnant, they're not necessarily of ill health, but they are definitely not of their normal health. So there are holistic practitioners out there who tend to specialize in maternity. So, it's the acupuncturist that specializes in maternity, or the medical herbalist who specializes in pregnant women or neonates, etc. So, maternity integrative medicine is really just that umbrella of them all being able to communicate. So especially the birth practitioners, like your midwives, obstetricians, and doulas, being able to communicate and learn from the holistic health practitioners who have ended up, for whatever reason, specializing in maternity. So yeah, that's kind of what it is. And I put it together a few years ago because there was just nothing. There was no forum for those two areas, the holistic healers and the maternity specialists. There was no forum for them to communicate, even though research shows that 2/3 of women around the planet, at an average, statistics vary depending on the research in the country, but in general terms, 2/3 of women, regardless of demographic or economics, will use complementary therapies or alternate therapies during their pregnancy.
Do you think that we're a lot more open now to going back to the almost like the what's the word I'm looking for? Those old wives' tales that, like we get told as kids, but there's actually a lot of wisdom and a lot of historical reasoning behind why they're so effective.
Yeah, I think you're very, very right. And the public themselves are demanding that within their own general health care. And they'll I remember when I was in my 20s, which is a while ago, but yeah, and I remember seeing an acupuncturist, and at the time they had this petition on their desk at that time to get acupuncture approved by the government as part of a mainstream way to, assist with healing. And now I'm not sure about Australia, but certainly in New Zealand, it's mainstream. So, if you have an accident or something and you need some compensation of health and recovery, they'll be saying, yep, you can go see the osteopath, go see the chiropractor, go see the acupuncturist. It's normal. It's mainstream now. But it hasn't got mainstream within maternity healthcare yet.
Isn't that crazy? Australia's a little behind. Our government has just, in their infinite wisdom, thank you, has removed complementary medicine from health insurance. So you can now no longer claim for naturopathy, acupuncture, all of that complementary style medicine that keeps people well. Instead, we've gone down the medical model path, and it's just drug us up, dudes, and we'll be fine.
Yeah, which is just it's in light of progress around the world, it's a massive step backwards, which is such a shame. And hopefully the public in Australia will demand that it sort of gets reversed at some point. But interestingly, even though it was in the general healthcare system in Australia, and it still is in New Zealand, it's never been part of maternity.
Which is kind of crazy, isn't it? Given that, I won't say 50% of the population, because there's women who choose not to have babies, there's women who can't have babies, but a large section of our population are having children. And
absolutely.
And it's
and
like,
our rates of intervention, our rates of obstetric medical intervention just keep going up and up and up. I mean, New Zealand, England, and the Netherlands have some of the best statistics in the world, particularly New Zealand and the Netherlands. But around, even then, it's still higher than what it optimally should be. And that's because we're not offering any alternatives. So, the woman's got gestational diabetes. Okay, we'll start on metformin and go to insulin. Where's the idea of saying, oh, why don't you go and where can the midwife or the obstetrician go, here's your referral to go see the acupuncturist, because we know that clinically that makes a difference, but we don't do it. So that's kind of where that driving force, the obsession, came from with regards to me forming that IMCO, as we call it. And so we have maternity natural health symposiums where we sort of open it up for the for both the birth practitioners and the naturopaths, or naturopathic therapists, and the public, for those women who just actually, want to hear it from the horse's mouth sort of thing. They want to actually sit there and hear all about the latest pieces of research. And we have really interesting journals that we put out about all the different latest research on integrative medicine within maternity health. So yeah, that's kind of...
So what you're saying, that it's really not just about educating the medical industry and the complementary people and how they can work together. It's also about educating women who are having the babies of what opportunities and what options that they have, because I think you said there's a 50-50 chance of having a traumatic emergency obstetric delivery. And if they're more aware of what is available to them, that we could probably circumvent that from happening.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. So there's one aspect is the general wellness of the pregnancy, where things like gestational diabetes, small for dates, just growing baby, of intrauterine growth retardation, or preeclamptic toxemia, things like that can be not necessarily eliminated, but sometimes they can be. But there's alternate therapies that can be very helpful. So, and if you take away those complications to the pregnancy, then the side effect of that is, oh look, we have a normal pregnancy. We don't need to induce this baby. We don't need to start putting in all those other medical interventions. So that's one aspect of it. And then the other aspect, I guess, is just women really understanding better the secrets of the stages of labor, and the phases of labor, and the stages of birth, and birth preparation in the last trimester, and all these things that make a huge difference. I did about a decade of being 24/7 on call as a busy caseloading midwife, and my demographic tended to be what you would sort of put up as a bit of a high-risk demographic. So I would have a lot of immigrants, so that would be, sometimes there's health aspects there, and obviously language aspects. I had a high average age, so a lot of advanced maternal age or geriatric pregnancies. And like 50% of my clients would have pre-existing medical conditions. And even then, only 15% would not be vaginal births.
Wow.
Yeah. And that was just from giving what I have come to describe as advanced antenatal education. So if you sort of think that just doing some classes, attending the local routine classes is enough, it's not enough. It's not enough. Doing the free classes or cheap classes that there is, it's not enough. and we've proven that. I'm not saying that they are poorly done. I'm not saying that at all, but it's not enough. You need to layer the information. So it's about going to those classes and maybe doing a separate set of classes and maybe doing some hypnobirthing classes and reading some good books and watching some good videos and having some one-on-one. And, you build it up and you build layer upon layer upon layer of information so that by the time that first contraction kicks in, you are so knowledgeable about what's ahead of you. You aren't fearful. And when you're not fearful, you don't produce adrenaline in your labor. And
wow.
And adrenaline is the enemy of oxytocin. So what happens is when you've got a woman who's not fearful and she's in this really empowered, great mental headspace, well, her cervix just dilates so much quicker because she's got no adrenaline on board. She's just oxytocined out. And it's amazing to what, and it's
blissed out on it.
She's just out. She's oxytocined out. And her cervix just dilates and then she's pushing out a baby. And epidural, why does she need an epidural? She's managing the pain of her labor. And God, she's almost 8 centimeters. Why bother? She'll be fully in half an hour. Whereas when you've got those women who typically, particularly with the first baby, will there'll be a little bit, sometimes the guys can have a little bit of an aspect of, it's only a baby, how hard can it be? Billion ahead of you. What do I really need to know about it? So that's, not all guys, but a lot of guys. Do they really want to read a book on birth? Not really. And they're your main birth support person. Okay, so your main birth support person is clearly never given birth and hasn't really embraced it all, right?
Yeah.
So, okay. Whereas, if we go back not that long ago, only sort of 50 years ago, and then for the thousands and tens of thousands of years before that, birth was the domain of women, because when you would go into labor, because everybody had more babies and because women supported women during labor, because it was seen as they were the ones that understood it, right? And I mean, even when doctors, modern medicine, ancient modern medicine sort of started getting in there, they were called male midwives. I mean, the word obstetrician came along a little bit later. They thought, oh, we better call ourselves something because we're the authority.
Yes, we need to
all that time. So then what would happen is, when a woman would be going into labor, well, firstly, she's attended probably 10 births in her life or something. She's seen her big sisters had babies. She's seen her cousins had baby. Maybe she attended one of her mum's births. She's been around birth already. And the grandmother's at the foot of the bed. And, well, she birthed her 8 children and she's had 20 grandchildren. She knows what's happening. So there was all this big, more familiarity with it. Whereas most women these days, their labor is the first labor they've ever attended.
And it's become this big mystical, like almost secret thing, hasn't it? And I know when I had my babies, you only allowed 2 people in the room. And it's like, well, but I want my mum there and I want my best friend there and I want my sister there. But no, you're not allowed to have them because it then becomes a medical process rather than something. And I find it really interesting that, as you were talking about, we do this class and then do this class and do that class, is that we are creating something that will continue on humanity, is the next generation. And yet we take it so casually that we don't feel that it's important enough to invest that time. I mean, I know that it's a natural, normal part of being a woman, but you're right. Education is really the key because you don't get into you don't get into a car without practice.
No, I mean you're absolutely right. I mean, we spend more hours learning to drive a car, probably tenfold than we spend learning how to give birth to our baby. I mean, that's nuts. We'll go and spend 3 or 4 or 5 years at university, for 40 hours a week and paying out all these fees to get a job, and the difference when that, I think, going back to that first, I'm going to be really sort of very stereotypical when I say this, but what sort of tends to happen with, and this is not a second time mum, this is a first time mum, to be where, she finds out she's pregnant. It's very exciting. Can't wait for that 20-week scan when she can find out the sex. Everything's around, the sex reveal party and whatever, and then they're kind of getting into the shopping ideas and, we've got to decorate the room for the baby and what pram should I have, because, I want to be able to go down to the beach and do I have the big wheels or the small wheels and I really, that's not the right color of the paint, and it's like there's all these details going on. And going, oh yeah, I need to go do those antenatal classes. Yeah, and we'll fit them in. And then when they do fit them in, typically the actual discussion around labour might only be one evening. That's it. And, so they might start the class at 7, finish the class at 9. There's a break in between. So what? They've had an hour and a half in their entire life to educate themselves on how to get through labour and birth. It's ridiculous.
That's enough.
So they arrive on birthing suite and they're already in a fearful place. They're already stressing out. They're already not managing to cope with their labour. So on goes the epidural. And because that is the way to get rid of instantly all the issue. So the problem with epidurals is as soon as they go on, it reduces your blood pressure, which has a side effect of reducing your contractions. So within typically half an hour of that epidural getting sited and on, the contractions have gone bleh. So now the midwives have to start an oxytocin drip to turn your contractions back up. And the problem with the oxytocin drip is it never ever manages it as beautifully as your body naturally does. So, we turn the drip up. Oh, now we're getting 5 contractions every 10 minutes. That's too much. We'll stress the baby out. All right. So we turn it down. Oh, now we're only getting 2 contractions every 10 minutes. We're never going to dilatate that cervix. So we spend this time going up and down and up and down, and we draw out the whole labour. So now, if that woman, if she manages to get fully dilated, we've probably added on about 2 or 3 hours to the labour with a combination of overly strong and overly weak contractions. And if the baby's got through to the point of the mother being fully dilated, but the baby has not managed to have fetal distress throughout that extra time, awesome. So now, well, it's not so awesome, but anyway, we've got that far. So now the woman starts to push. And hey presto, she's, even if we let that epidural sort of dial down a little bit, there's still remnants of it there. In the meantime, because she's been stretched out like this the whole time, the baby's malpositioned. It hasn't got its head down and flexed as it should be. So the baby's not descending when she's starting to push. So hey presto, if she gets fully dilated and the baby gets low enough, she would be able to have an assisted delivery, which is a forceps or a ventouse. The headache that it leaves on that baby, I can't even imagine how bad it is.
You sound like you're describing my first pregnancy. It was horrible.
It's a failed ventouse or forceps delivery.
Ventouse.
Oh, yeah. And if it fails, well, we go to the emergency section. Or if the baby gets in a fetal distress before fully dilated at birth, it's the emergency cesarean. Or if the baby won't descend with pushing, it's the emergency cesarean. It's just, and so women have, you might hear of your local hospital that it says that, our rates of Caesar are 35%. That's across the board. What's their rates for a first-time mother? 50%, And then you add in the instrumental and the forceps deliveries. Well, that's probably 65%. You've probably got a 1/3 chance of your baby having a non-traumatic, non-emergency delivery. That's horrific.
That's horrific. What are the rates for these type of intervention deliveries? Because my eldest is almost 20 years old. So going back 20 years, you described my experience. Second baby, not so difficult because I learnt from the first one, and I did yoga, and I read more, and I studied more, and I was calmer, and it was 2/3 the time less.
And there was probably an aspect of you with that second one that sort of said, come hell or high water, I'm not going through that again.
Absolutely.
And I'm not going to let my baby go through that again.
Yeah, because the first one had so many troubles.
Yep, absolutely. You get ferocious, and you become informed, and you go, I'm going to get educated about this. I'm going to learn about hypnobirthing. I'm going to read about it. I'm going to be aware. I'm going to, and you take control. And it is so possible to have that happen for the first baby when women get that advanced antenatal education. And what I found, initially, when I was 24/7 on call all the time with my own private caseload, I found instantly that my woman would birth better. But then what I found over time is that it actually didn't even matter if I personally made it to the birth or not. Like if I was off on that, if I was away that weekend, does it matter? Is my partner going to be, my practice partner is going to be be the midwife there? Oh, look, it's a Kathy Fray woman. And even like the charge midwives on birthing suite would go, oh, Kathy Fray's woman. Oh, you don't worry about her, she'll birth. Yeah. So and it wasn't about the midwife that you had there with you. It was about the woman's headspace.
Oh my God, Kathy. So where should women go? What should they do? So they're contemplating having their first baby, or they're already pregnant with their first bub. What's the next step for them if they really want to take control of the process that is giving birth to a baby?
Well, that's really what I've been working on. So to create those resources and services that I feel were really missing. And I don't think we can dispute that they're missing, because the birth statistics are poor, So, and just making that bit more information makes such a difference. So if people just go to kathyfray.com, there's loads of stuff there, and there's a bunch of free resources. But I would have to say, if you're saying what's the best thing that they could do, well, in my clearly biased opinion, it would be, is have me as an international maternity consultant for you, because that's what I do. And my women go on and have, and in those rare situations where I have a woman who does require to have an obstetrically assisted birth or labour, the difference is she never, ever, ever has any kind of mummy guilt that her baby needed that assistance, because she can put her hand on her heart and she goes, I know I did everything in my power for that baby to have a normal birth. And we don't realise the damage that we do to our babies who are not delivered, are not birthed naturally, versus being cut out, yanked out, or sucked out. It completely, it changes them in many different levels, which is another whole kind of science in itself.
I just kind of went, we're getting close to wrapping up, but to talk about, the number of women that now diarise a cesarean without even thinking about the natural way of delivering is shocking, and I find it quite confronting. But I think that's a whole other conversation we might have to have at another time.
It's kind of funny, because when the baby is still inside you, it tends to be, with a first time mum, almost like a project that they're managing. But when that baby comes out, you suddenly realise you will do anything to keep them safe.
Yeah.
And it's only about getting that mindset before the baby's born, And what, so you're going to spend money on some private education so they're falling behind in maths. All right, we'll go spend $50 an hour for the maths tutor. We're going to do whatever we need to do to help this kid. So I'm just saying, you just need to start it earlier. That's all.
Yeah, started. Oh, Kathy, thank you so much. That was really enlightening, and I kind of wish I'd known you 20 years ago. That would have been really helpful. Not having any more babies, but I will have children who will. Well, I've got boys; they won't have babies. Maybe that would be a really good front cover for a new idea or something like that. Man gives birth to a child, but until that happens, keep spreading the very important message that you have. And it's been an absolute privilege to talk to you this afternoon. Thank you for coming on Obsessed Live Show.
Thank you, Annette, for inviting me. Very appreciated.